I know what you're thinking. The last time the fandom tried to guess that the Genshin character was blind based on a pre-release teaser, it didn't end up being true. But, I mean, come on, is that something we're only allowed to guess once and never again? And it's not like I'm making such a bold claim about Flints' role in the plot. I'm just gonna elaborate on a little observation I had, even if it doesn't end up being true, it's a fun speculation for the meantime. So yeah, I'm just gonna do a quick chat about why I think Kirill Chudomirovich Flins, the Lightkeeper, is blind not only based on his appearance but also based on the potential plot relevance of this detail. Plus, I'll also share a few thoughts about other Nod-Krai characters at the end. Just as a disclaimer, I haven't seen any leaks about lore elements yet, and I also don't browse through my Twitter timeline anymore, so these thoughts are entirely original. Yes, admittedly, the speculation originally came from the mere fact that Flints' eyes are drawn in a particular way. Of course, it's not rare for Genshin Impact playable character designs to feature unique eye shapes, so I didn't think much of it at first. I thought his pale eyes without visible pupils were just meant to portray him as edgy. But then I still couldn't help but feel like his eyes were even more unique than any other supposedly unique eyes we've encountered before. Like, yes, we have characters like Child who lack that certain eye shine in his eyes. We have Conrians with Primogem pupils. We have Albedo's alchemy eyes. We have Baiju's reptilian eyes, which came as a result of him switching eyes with Changsheng. And we have Neuvlette's striking purple eyes that look similar to that of baptismal bishops, all of which seem to have plot relevance. At the same time, there are also characters with quirky eyes without any explanation for them, such as Dahlia having diamond eyes, Chongyun having reptilian-looking eyes, and many others. However, as far as I remember, it's only Flint so far who dares not to have pupils at all. Although another character I know has glazed over pupils that look somewhat like Toph's from Avatar The Last Airbender, I still feel like it could be attributed to just a Hoyoverse design quirk, as she still has something which we can consider to look like pupils. Or both of them could be blind to different degrees. That's still definitely a possibility. However, not only does Flint lack pupils, his irises are also pale in color, which is different from, let's say, if he had purely red or black irises, as those have different connotations compared to pale irises, which are often associated with blindness because they do sometimes occur in blind people in real life. Now, it's worth noting that not all blind people have pale irises, which is why fans suspected that Risley could be blind despite him not having pale irises. This is especially since there are varying degrees of blindness. For instance, one content creator and children's storybook author describes his blindness as him having extreme tunnel vision, as if he's only looking through a straw, and he doesn't have pale irises. But pale irises without pupils still fit most people's idea of what blindness looks like, so a character design for a blind person might incorporate this element deliberately. And this is something that the designers chose to do for Flins, but not Risley, the last character we presume to be blind based on a teaser. And if Flint's eyes look like this already in 2D form, the striking lack of pupils might even be more evident in his in-game model. And additionally, looking at the teaser video, I find that although there's no scene that directly proves that Flint is blind, he's also not depicted in scenes that directly prove that he can see normally. Scenes such as looking at the painting, taking someone's photo, or stargazing and talking about the stars, things like that. Instead, we have a scene where he's standing in a graveyard, and the narration that accompanies the scene is, "It was not until the funerary year that the primordial voice once again cried out in the darkness." That's also when he looks back. I take this to mean he could potentially be responding to sound, as this sense of his is heightened. Although he quote-unquote looks back, it doesn't necessarily mean that he wants to look at something behind him, but maybe it's a reflex upon hearing something and he's preparing to fully turn around. And in the other scene where he's in, he defeated some wild hunt forces with his electro powers, but it is possible that he just sensed their presence and he doesn't really see them with his eyes as he's confronting them. Now you may say, why is he carrying a lamp? Well, it's possible that one, he could have the type of blindness where he can still distinguish light from dark, but the images are barely visible, so the light is still helpful. Or two, even if he's completely blind, as a light keeper, the lamp might still have some ritualistic or practical significance, like maybe the lamps actually provide protection against the wild hunt, or maybe it allows other light keepers to see where he is. So yeah, that's why I think it's still possible that Flins could be blind beyond just the design of his eye. Also, aside from Flins having pale irises, I think him being blind could fit well with his lore and character themes. That's not to say every depiction of disability should be plot relevant. It's important for disabilities to be represented in the media casually to show that disabled people can have well-rounded, fulfilling lives. However, I don't know if many creators have gotten to that point yet, and I feel like Hoyoverse especially will not make a character disabled unless it serves the plot. An exception could be Yelan, who some people with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and other similar conditions have found themselves relating to. When fans speculated that Risley was blind, there were many interesting concepts that could come out of it, especially when it came to disability accommodations in Fontaine, where there are abundant laws on all sorts of things. But it wasn't clear how this would tie into his personal themes of leadership and redemption. Meanwhile, I could see Flints' blindness having a stronger thematic link to his role as a light keeper due to light being something that we observe with our sense of sight. So I propose two possibilities for Flints' blindness to tie into those themes. One is if he has total blindness, which entails zero light perception, then it could be the case that he becomes unfazed by the darkness, making him an even more formidable light keeper, so he can confront the wild hunt directly without fearing the moment when his light will go out. The second possibility is that Flins has the type of blindness where he cannot recognize shapes and colors but can still distinguish lightness from darkness, so light becomes even more important for him as a guiding force, making him value the work of light keepers even more. In both cases, Flins' blindness has an impact on his job, which is where his purpose likely stems from. If Flins were blind, it would also be very interesting to know if he acquired his condition congenitally or if he was affected by the wild hunt. Either way, this would impact his life greatly by serving as an important part of his origin story or his sense of motivation. So I'll be looking forward to that arc in case my prediction turns out to be true. Now moving on to other characters in Nod-Krai, I don't have tons of thoughts about each of them, but there are just a few things that I might want to speculate on or point out. First is that I'm speculating that Varka could either be a Gunhilder or an Immunlauker. If he's a Gunhilder, maybe he's Jean's and Barbara's uncle or cousin, not their brother because he spoke to Frederica too casually. I don't know exactly why I thought this, but I was just imagining that he has blonde hair, blue eyes, and he seems to have some clan legacy backing him up. However, if this were true, it would also mean that the nepotism in the Knights of Favonius is even more intense than it already is. My preferred speculation is that he's actually part of the Immunlauker clan, another ancient clan from Mondstadt along with the Lawrences, Ragnvinders, and Gunhilders. The clan's original patriarch tried to save Salvindagnir, but couldn't help its people in time before the Celestial Nails descended and it became Dragonspine. As one of Mondstadt's important clans, it would be nice to see one of its members being represented in the modern day. On top of that, this clan owned the sacrificial greatsword and was known for fighting rituals, which we can link to Varka's use of the claymore as his chosen weapon and his strength and fondness for combat. So yeah, I hope he's going to be called Varka Immunlauker. Another thing I just want to point out is that Nod-Krai and Snezhnaya are not counterparts of Russia. You might be like, whoa, what? What do you mean? I mean to say that Snezhnaya instead represents various Slavic and Baltic traditions, and it wouldn't be great to erase all of those elements just to call it fictional Russia. For example, Flints' patronymic is Chudomirovich, meaning son of Chudomir, and Chudomir is the pseudonym of a real-life Bulgarian writer and painter. Lauma's name also stems from a Latvian and Lithuanian term pertaining to woodland spirits that care for orphans. So yes, just be sensitive with how he talk about Snezhnaya's and Nod-Krai's influences. Lastly, when Varka appeared, he said that he came here for the moon. But the captions state that he's referring to the moon as in Mondstadt, which literally means moon city, which is a pretty interesting etymology that some might even dub as sus. However, even Liyue means jade or glazed moon, citing a similar connection. Meanwhile, none of the other nations have moon-related etymologies. So I wonder what led Mondstadt and Liyue to pay tribute to the moon and what the similarity in tradition could indicate. Anyway, that's all for today. You don't have to believe wholeheartedly in blind Flins, but it's just a fun concept to entertain for now. Anyway, I wish you guys luck with your pulls, and I hope that you'll have the wisdom to spend your primo gems and real-life currency wisely. And let's have fun getting to know the upcoming Nod-Krai characters together.